She said, "Every girl is like this. You'll regret leaving me," like she was reading a universal law off a billboard. I stared at the small dent in our apartment door and realized that sentence was the whole problem. Hey friends, please subscribe and turn on notifications, like this video, and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you. It's all thanks to you. I'm 24, she's 23. We were together for almost 3 years, which in your early 20s feels like a lifetime and a prophecy at the same time. We met in Austin at a friend's backyard birthday party in late spring, the kind with cheap string lights, paper plates, and a speaker that cuts out whenever somebody walks too close. She was funny in a quick, sharp way. She made eye contact when you talked like you mattered. When she laughed, she did this little shoulder shake, and I remember thinking, this is the kind of person who will keep life from getting dull. The first year was easy. I worked help desk at a mid-sized company downtown, the kind where you reset passwords, swap keyboards, and pretend you don't see the same urgent ticket reopened 10 times by the same person. She was finishing school and doing an internship for a small marketing firm. We were both busy and broke, but we were proud. We cooked cheap dinners and called it adulting. We took long walks around Lady Bird Lake and talked about everything like we had all the answers. The second year was when the small things started to feel like patterns. It wasn't one big betrayal, no dramatic cheating confession, no secret family. It was more like living with a smoke detector that keeps chirping. At first you think it's just the battery. Then you realize it's going to do it every night at 2 a.m. and you're the only one losing sleep. The first time she gave me the silent treatment, I didn't even recognize it as a tactic. We were in my car, parked outside a grocery store. I had said something dumb, something harmless in my head. We were talking about a couple we knew who got engaged, and I joked that they were rushing. She went quiet like I had insulted her family. I asked what was wrong. She said, nothing. But nothing lasted the whole shopping trip. It lasted past checkout, past the ride home, past dinner. I kept trying softly to get her to talk, and she kept answering like a closed door. At midnight, when I finally said, "I can't fix it if you won't tell me what it is," she sighed like I was the unreasonable one and said, "You should know." That phrase, "you should know," became a recurring soundtrack. It meant guess. It meant prove you care by reading my mind. It meant if you guess wrong, you pay. Back then, I still believed effort could solve anything, so I tried harder. I started replaying conversations in my head like security footage. I started measuring my words before I said them. I thought I was becoming a better boyfriend. I didn't realize I was training myself to walk on eggshells. We moved in together because it made sense financially, and because, at the time, I thought living together was what you did when you were serious. In August of last year, we signed a lease for a one-bedroom apartment in South Austin. The rent was too high for comfort. We split it. We bought a couch from a guy on Facebook Marketplace who kept calling it basically new, even while he wiped dog hair off the cushions. At first, it felt like a real step. A shared life, shared groceries, shared routines, shared weekends. Then the apartment became a stage for our worst habits. It wasn't like she was angry all the time. That's the part that makes you doubt yourself. She could be sweet for days. She could make coffee and leave me a little note. She could hold my face and tell me she loved me in a voice that made me believe it completely. And then there would be a flip. The flip usually started small. A tone, a look, a question that wasn't really a question. "Who is texting you?" It could be my coworker asking if I could cover a shift. It could be my sister sending me a photo of her dog. It could be a group chat about a friend's upcoming wedding. It didn't matter. The fact that my attention was pulled away from her, even briefly, lit something up inside her. At first she would say it like she was joking. "Oh, your girlfriend number 2. If I laughed, she'd say I was dismissing her feelings. If I got serious, she'd say I was overreacting. I tried the calm route. I tried transparency. I'd turn the screen and show her. I thought that was the mature way, like, see, nothing to worry about. But once you start proving you're innocent, you're already playing a game where you're assumed guilty. The demand shifted from show me to let me see. Then it became, why can't I have your passcode? I remember the night she asked like it was a casual thing. We were on the couch watching some reality show she liked, one of those where strangers get married and everyone pretends it's a science experiment. She paused the TV, looked at me with that serious face and said, "If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't care." I hated how clean that sounded, like a slogan, like a line she'd heard somewhere and decided it was the final answer. I told her I wasn't hiding anything, but privacy mattered. I said it gently. I said, I don't go through your phone. She shrugged, you can, I don't care. That was another trap because the moment I didn't take the offer, I was refusing openness. The truth was, I didn't want to go through her phone. I didn't want to be the kind of couple that treated each other like suspects. I wanted the kind of trust where you could both breathe. She took my reluctance as evidence. That became our loop. She'd accuse, I'd defend. She'd say defending meant I was hiding. Then she'd cry and I'd comfort her, and somehow the end result was always the same. I was apologizing for something I hadn't done. The first time I saw her hit something in anger, it startled me in a way I didn't want to admit. We were arguing about something stupid, dishes, I think. I had worked a long day. I came home and the sink was full, and I made the mistake of sounding tired when I asked if we could both knock them out quickly. She snapped, so now I'm your maid. I said, that's not what I said. She started listing every time she had ever cleaned something in that apartment like she was presenting evidence in court. I tried to keep my voice level. I tried not to escalate. I said, okay, let's just reset. I'm not accusing you. I'm asking for help. And she, without warning, shoved a dining chair so hard it scraped the floor and banged into the wall. It wasn't aimed at me, but it was loud. It was violent energy with nowhere to go except into the room we lived in. Then she looked at me like I had caused it, like my request had pushed her into it. You make me feel crazy, she said, breathing hard. And I remember thinking, I don't want to live with crazy. Then I felt guilty for thinking it because I loved her. So I did what I always did. I softened. I apologized for my tone. I hugged her while she cried. I told myself it was stress, school, work, life. We all have stress. Not everyone turns it into a weapon. Still, the part of me that wanted this to work kept taking responsibility for her reactions. I kept adjusting my life to avoid triggering the flip. It changed me. I became quieter. I started texting friends less. I stopped answering calls around her because I didn't want the tension. If my phone buzzed, my stomach would tighten automatically. And that's how I know it wasn't normal. When your body starts bracing as a default, something is wrong. The conversation that really cracked things open happened in early November. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and she brought up marriage out of nowhere, not as a dream or a maybe, as a deadline. My cousin got engaged, she said, scrolling on her phone. They've been together less time than us. I nodded, good for them. She looked up, so when? I knew what she meant. We had talked about the future, but always in broad terms. Someday, later, when we're stable, when we're ready. Now she wanted a date, a plan, a ring. I tried to be honest without being harsh. I said, I want to be sure we're good, not just good for a week, good like steady. She smirked, we are good. I hesitated, she noticed, because she always did. Say it, she said, what's your excuse now? That word, excuse, made my face heat up. I told her the truth. I said I needed us to handle conflict differently. I said the silent treatment, the accusations, the blow-ups, the hitting things, it was okay. I didn't say it to shame her. I said it like a boundary, like we can't build a marriage on this. She stared at me like I had slapped her. Then she said, so you think I'm a monster? I said no, I think we have problems. She stood up so fast her chair scraped. Every girl is like this, she said, pointing at me like I was the one being naive. They get emotional, they get mad, they want attention. If you can't handle it, you're going to be alone. I remember the exact way she said, alone, like it was a curse she could place on me. Then she added, my mom is like this, my friends are like this, that's how women are, you want some robot. I sat there with my hands flat on the table, because if I moved, I thought I might say something sharp, and I didn't want to fight, I wanted clarity. I said no, I want respect. That's when she did something I still think about. She laughed, short, dismissive, and said, you're so dramatic. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door. And I stayed at the table, staring at the scratched wood, realizing that if I accepted her worldview, I was signing up for a lifetime of being threatened with loneliness whenever I asked for basic decency. The next few days were cold. She didn't apologize. She acted like the marriage talk had never happened. She'd send me memes. She'd ask what I wanted for dinner. She'd kiss me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. And that made me feel like I was losing my mind because I couldn't just forget it. I couldn't unhear, every girl is like this. I started noticing how often she used absolutes. Always, never, everyone, no one, all girls, all guys. Absolutes are comforting when you don't want to change. If all girls are like this, then her behavior isn't a choice. It's a destiny. And if it's destiny, then I'm the problem for resisting. Around this time, my friend Marcus from work asked if I wanted to grab a beer after our shift. Normally, I would have said no, because I didn't want to deal with the suspicion, but something in me needed air. So I went. We sat at a quiet place near the office, nothing fancy, just a spot with dim lighting and TVs nobody was watching. Marcus talked about his upcoming move. I listened, but my mind was loud. Finally he asked, "You okay, man? You look like you've got a migraine." I didn't want to dump my relationship on him, but I did a little. I said things like, "She gets mad a lot, and she says it's normal, and I don't know if I'm being too sensitive." Marcus didn't do the usual guy thing of joking or brushing it off. He just said, "If you feel like you're walking on eggshells, that's not normal. That's your body warning you." That sentence sat in my chest. That night when I got home, she was on the couch. She didn't ask how it went. She asked, "Who were you with?" I answered, "Marcus." She frowned, "Why didn't you invite me?" I said it was just coworkers. She stared at me, and I could see her gearing up for a fight, like she had been waiting all day for a reason. And in that moment, I felt tired down to my bones. I said, "I can't live like this." Her expression shifted instantly. "What do you mean like this?" I could hear my heart thumping, but my voice stayed calm, like every normal part of my life is treated like a threat. She scoffed, "So now I'm controlling." I didn't argue, that was new for me. I used to argue because I wanted her to understand. Now I realized understanding wasn't the goal, winning was. I said, "I need space." She rolled her eyes like I was doing something performative. "Fine," she said, and walked into the bedroom. But then, an hour later, she came back out in tears, full on sobbing. She climbed onto the couch next to me and grabbed my arm like she was drowning. "I can't lose you," she whispered. "I'm sorry, I'm just scared." And here's the part that made it so confusing. In that moment, she looked like the girl I fell for, the one who made eye contact and cared. So I comforted her. I told her we could talk. I told her I didn't want to hurt her. And she, through tears, said it again, softly this time, like a warning disguised as intimacy. "Just don't expect perfection," she said. "Every girl is like this." I didn't respond. I just stared at the wall behind her because it hit me that she wasn't saying, "I'll work on it." She was saying, "Accept it." The breakup wasn't one dramatic explosion. It was a slow decision that finally reached the surface. The next morning on November 12th, I woke up early before she did. I went into the kitchen and made coffee. I sat at the table with my laptop open, not working, just staring at my bank app and our lease agreement in my email. I did the practical math. If I moved out, could I afford a studio for a few months? What would breaking the lease cost? Could I sublet? Could one of us keep the place alone? My mind went into logistics because that felt safe. Emotions were a storm. Logistics were a map. When she woke up, she came into the kitchen and looked at me like she could tell I was different. "What are you doing?" she asked. I said, "We need to talk." Her face tightened. "Now." "Now," I said. I didn't do the speech I had rehearsed in my head. I didn't list her sins. I didn't attack. I kept it simple because simple is harder to twist. I said, "I don't think we should stay together." She blinked like she hadn't heard me correctly. "Are you serious?" "Yes." For a second she was silent, and I thought maybe this would be quiet. Maybe this would be sad but respectful. Then her eyes narrowed. "You're giving up." "I'm choosing peace," I said. That phrase made her laugh, not kindly. "Peace," she repeated. "So you want to run away from a real woman?" I didn't bite, I just took a breath. She stood there for a long moment, then said, "You're going to regret this." There it was again, the curse. She started pacing, talking fast, throwing sentences like darts. She told me I was ungrateful. She told me I didn't know how good I had it. She told me no woman would put up with me like she did. She told me I would come crawling back. And then she flipped into crying again, like a switch. I did everything for you, she sobbed. I loved you so much. I didn't tell her she hadn't. I knew she loved me in her way. The problem was her way came with conditions and fear and punishment. I said, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying this relationship isn't healthy. She wiped her face and looked at me with sudden calm that scared me more than tears. So what? You're just leaving. You're just going to abandon me. I'm moving out, I said, or we figure out a plan. You can't just decide that, she snapped. I can, I said quietly, because I'm in this too. That might have been the first time in months I said something that didn't orbit around her feelings. She told me she would move out, then 5 minutes later said she wouldn't. Then she said she couldn't afford it. Then she said it was my responsibility because I started this. Then she said she'd tell everyone what kind of man I was. I sat there and listened, and I felt something steady inside me, not anger, just clarity. I said, we're going to handle this like adults. No threats, no mind games. We're going to split the logistics and be done. She scoffed. Adults, she said, like it was an insult. That afternoon, I called our landlord. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it because I needed facts. The landlord told me our lease had a buyout clause, 2 months rent as penalty, plus we'd lose the security deposit unless we found someone to take over. Subletting wasn't allowed without approval, but a lease transfer might be possible. I asked what the process was. I took notes. I emailed myself the details. I started a folder on my laptop labeled Move. That night, she tried a different angle. She cooked my favorite meal. She lit a candle. She put on music. She acted like we were on a date. When I sat down and thanked her, she smiled like she had won something. We can fix this, she said softly. You're just scared. Men always get scared when things get serious. I looked at her and felt that old tug, the part of me that wanted to believe love could overwrite patterns. But then she added, and you know, every girl is like this. You're not going to find some perfect angel who never gets upset, so why throw away what we have? It wasn't an apology, it was a sales pitch. I put my fork down. I said, I'm not leaving because you get upset. I'm leaving because of how you treat me when you're upset. Her smile faded like a light turned off. Here we go, she muttered. I didn't argue. I said, I'm going to stay with my brother for a few nights. We can talk about the apartment when we're calm. Her eyes widened. You're really doing this? Yes. And then, because she couldn't help herself, she said the line that finally broke the spell completely. You're making a mistake, she said. You'll see. You'll end up alone. You'll come back and you'll beg. I stood up, took my keys, and walked to the bedroom to pack a bag. She followed me saying my name, alternating between pleading and insulting. When I didn't respond, she started crying louder. When that didn't work, she went quiet and stared at me with pure resentment. As I zipped my bag, she said, You're abandoning me like my dad did. And I almost stopped. I almost turned and tried to fix that wound for her. But then I realized something hard and important. I wasn't her therapist, and I wasn't her punching bag, and I wasn't responsible for rewriting her childhood. I said, I'm not your dad, I'm your boyfriend, and I'm choosing not to do this anymore. I walked out. The first night at my brother's place, I slept like someone had turned off a siren in my head. That's how I knew I wasn't crazy. My body recognized safety immediately. The next week was strange. I went to work and felt lighter. I ate lunch without checking my phone. I laughed with coworkers and realized I had been missing that version of myself. She, meanwhile, texted like a person, trying every key on a ring. One day it was apologies. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm just emotional. The next day it was blame. You're cruel, you're cold, you never loved me. Then it was bargaining. Let's do couples counseling. I'll change. Then it was threats. If you leave, I'm telling everyone you were abusive. I didn't respond emotionally. I kept my replies short and logistical. I said things like, we can discuss the lease on Saturday at 2 p.m. I said, please don't contact my coworkers. I said, we're broken up. She hated that. She wanted a fight because fights kept us connected. Silence and boundaries felt like death to her. On Saturday, I went back to the apartment with my brother. not because I needed protection from violence, but because I didn't trust the emotional chaos. Having a witness helps keep things real. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch like she had been waiting in a courtroom. She looked at my brother and said, "Really, you brought backup?" I said, "He's here so we can keep this calm." She snorted, "I'm calm." The dent in the door said otherwise. We sat at the table. I put printed papers down, the lease clause, the buyout amount, the landlord's email, a simple budget estimate. She looked at it like I had handed her an insult. "I'm not paying that," she said immediately. I said, "Then we need a lease transfer." She said, "You can pay, you're the one leaving." I said, "We both signed, we both share responsibility." Then she did what she always did. She tried to turn the conversation into a character trial. "You're so cold," she said. "You always do this. You act like you're better than me." I didn't react. I pointed at the paper. "This isn't about better, it's about the contract." She leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, "Fine, I'll keep the apartment." I looked at her. "Can you afford it alone?" She hesitated. My brother said nothing. He just sat there, quiet like a steady wall. She finally said, "I'll figure it out." I nodded. "If you keep it, we need the landlord to approve removing me and adding you alone, or adding a roommate. Otherwise, I'm still legally tied to this." She rolled her eyes. "You don't trust me." "I trust paperwork," I said. That made her furious. "You're such an ein." She caught herself because my brother was there. She swallowed the word and replaced it with, "You're such a jerk." Then she reached for my weak spot. She said, "No woman is going to put up with you. You're going to be alone. Every girl is like me." I looked at her and said, "That's not true. And even if it was, being alone would still be better than being threatened with it." She stared at me like I had broken some rule. We got through the basics. She agreed to contact the landlord about a roommate. I agreed to keep paying my share until the transfer happened, but only if we had a written timeline. I left with a box of my things and an unexpected sense of grief, not because I doubted the breakup, but because 3 years is still 3 years. You mourn the good moments even when you know the pattern is poison. The next 2 weeks were a tug-of-war between her denial and reality. She posted cryptic quotes on social media. She sent me long messages at 1 a.m. She tried to bait me into arguing about who was right. I didn't. I kept replying like a customer service agent. Then on December 1st, the landlord emailed us both. She had submitted a request to add a roommate, some friend of a friend, and remove me from the lease. The landlord needed income verification and signatures. I filled my part out within an hour. I signed. I attached my ID. I sent it back. She took 3 days because she wanted me to sweat. I could tell. But with my brother and my sister both telling me the same thing, "Stay steady, let systems do the work," I didn't panic. On December 6th, it was approved. My name was officially removed as of December 15th. When I saw that email, I felt something open up in my chest like a window. She texted me right after, "So that's it." I replied, "That's it." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then she sent, "You'll regret this. Everyone told me men can't handle real women. Every girl is like this." And for the first time, I felt nothing when I read it. No guilt, no fear, just distance. I didn't reply. On December 15th, I went to pick up the last of my things. She wasn't home. She had left a box by the door with my name on it. Inside were random items: a hoodie, an old charger, a book I forgot about, and a photo of us at that first backyard party. There was no note, no apology, no kindness, just a relic like she wanted to haunt me with the good part. I took the photo out, looked at it for a long moment, then set it back in the box. I wasn't angry, I was done. That night in my new small studio apartment, cheap, quiet, a little lonely in the best way, I sat on the floor because my couch hadn't been delivered yet. I ate takeout straight from the container. I listened to the hum of the refrigerator. I felt peace. And then, because healing is never a straight line, I felt sadness. The kind that comes when you realize you loved someone who didn't know how to love without control. I thought about all the times I had swallowed my own feelings to keep hers calm. I thought about how often I had been told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too cold, too something. I thought about that sentence again. Every girl is like this. It wasn't just wrong, it was lazy. It was a shield against accountability. The truth I learned the hard way is simple. Everyone has emotions. Not everyone uses emotions as a weapon. Everyone gets angry. Not everyone punishes their partner for needing respect. Everyone has insecurity. Not everyone turns insecurity into surveillance and threats. I didn't leave because I expected perfection. I left because I wanted safety. A few weeks later, my sister asked how I was doing. I told her, honestly, I feel like myself again. She said, good, don't ever trade yourself for someone else's chaos. Sometimes I still catch myself bracing when my phone buzzes, like a muscle memory. Sometimes I still hear her voice in the back of my mind saying I'll be alone. Then I look around my quiet room, and I remember how heavy my life felt before, and I realize being alone isn't the worst outcome. Losing yourself is. If you've ever been told, this is just how we are, when we really meant I refuse to change, I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and tell me what line finally made you see things clearly.